We're going to look at the excellence in public relations theory and how it came about, what the intentions of the study were, and then how it can be applied to agricultural communication. This is a study that resulted, or a theory that resulted after 15 years worth of study. Grunig was looking at the best practices in communications and management and public relations. It was funded by the International Association of Business Communicators Research Foundation, and this study was utilized to identify excellence in organizations, and the excellence was then defined as a continuously profitable organization, and so that was one of the key factors that they looked at when they chose organizations that they were going to survey. Grunig first looked at public relations and why it was made valuable to a company in 1984. He wanted to see what the correlation between a good public relations department and a successful company looked like, and how those two worked together so that the company was profitable. This theory was tested through a survey in the United States, Canada, and the United Kingdom. And the reason that this was done was because Grunig wanted to look at how organizations interacted with their PR departments, but they also wanted to see if this was a similar thing in other countries. And so Canada and the United Kingdom was chosen because of the similar business structure that they have set up. Through the survey, they gathered quantitative data. They looked at numbers, and a lot of the questions were on Likert scale, and so you had to rate 1 to 5 or 1 to 10, and so the scores were totaled, and then the top 25 with the highest excellence score, and then the 25 with the lowest excellence score were pulled for interviews, and in those interviews, qualitative data was. Like I said before, the survey did do qualitative and quantitative, and for their qualitative data, they pulled the public relations partners, heads of the public relations departments, and CEOs for these 25 businesses that were high on the excellence scale, and then the 25 businesses that were on the lower end of the excellence scale, to see what the difference was and how those businesses operated and how they utilized their public relations department. From the survey, they gathered that there was an economic advantage to having a good public relations department within your organization. This is where the business can reduce costs in litigations and having to push campaigns against negative ads and against negative communications. They're saving that money because they have a good public relations department that's on the forefront and is definitely putting out the front of the company that has a positive image and really utilizes the fact that they have positive information to support their business. And so this was really important, especially when we're looking at businesses, because businesses are there to make money, and if they're having to spend their money in making up for the fact that they have litigations or having to cover bad press, then that's where they're losing money, and so the organization is no longer as profitable as it could be. There were 3 developers who really researched this, and they are James Grunig, Larissa Grunig, who is his wife, and David Dozier. James is credited with this theory the most, and the 3 of them wrote a book, The Excellence in Public Relations and Communications Management, and that book is utilized in that theory. The theories that they came up with are utilized to teach public relations and communications management, and how those two need to work together within an organization so that it is profitable and so that the company has the best appeal to the targeted audience or their consumers. Why does effective communication what does it look like in the corporate world? How can effective communication make an organization more effective? And how can an organization benefit economically from good communications and public relations? These were the 3 questions that Grunig and his team really looked at during their study. When you're looking at specifics to a public relations department, a lot of times it comes back to the communication and how they communicate to the world, to other businesses within their industry, and to the general public. And the last question really talks about how a business is economically benefited from good communication and public relations, because businesses are out to make money, and even if it's not for profit, they still have to keep that in mind, and you can't run a successful business without having a positive image. And if that image is tainted, how do you recoup, or how do you negate what is being said to prove that your business is doing the good that it says it's going to do? The whole premise of the study looked at several things. The value of a public relations department within an organization, how that role is unique in strategic management, what is the difference between a sublimated and integrated department or position, the internal communications and employee satisfaction, and the inclusion in management strategic roles. Each of these pieces that went into their study really played a part of developing the theory and looking at how the public relations department within an organization works. When they looked at the inclusion in management and strategic roles, this really pulled in the fact that yes, women are in public relations, but they're not necessarily moving up into the management positions. And then when they noticed that that was kind of an overall occurrence, they also then pulled in race and ethnicity in these management positions and looked at how does that affect the public relations department or the organization, and what is the cause between these two things. So they came up with 4 models. The first one being the publicity model. This is where businesses are saying what the consumers want to hear, and they don't necessarily have any truth behind it. They may pull one fact or one piece of information, but they don't necessarily show the whole picture, and they're just sending out information for businesses to the general public to see. A good example of this would be a commercial or a publicist who has released only positive or specific information about their client, and this is to have that good image of the public values for that company or that person or whoever. The next is the model of public information. This is where organizations relate the information to themselves or about themselves, and they want this information to be true, and they don't make any effort to hide this information or the truth. They want it to be known. This is where people are pushing out that information just so that they always have that consistent presence within the community. When we're looking at these 2 models, they differ from the next 2. These 2 don't look at research or analyze the information that's being sent out to the public. They just send as much information as they can, and they always have a presence within their consumers. And so the next ones we look at, they take into consideration what their targeted audience is. Like I said, this is one of the 2 that looks at what the organization's targeted audience wants to hear. And this is an asymmetrical version. This is where the organization does look at that information. However, there's not a 2-sided communication to it. It's just the company finding what their target audience wants to know or wants to hear, and then they send that information to them. They don't necessarily look for things that are going to be negative towards their business, and they definitely look for things that are going to draw their consumers back or in for the first time. They want this news to definitely be truthful and accurate so that it reflects the best image of the company. But like I said, it is a one-sided communication, just like things that are asymmetrical are. The second, or the next kind that kind of is similar to this, where the organization does look at the audience, is the symmetrical model. And this is where the line of communication between the audience or the consumers and the business is definitely open, and the organization will listen and respond to what the audience wants to hear. And so this is where they take in that information and process it and see what needs to be said or what needs to be sent out so that everyone has the same understanding or clarification. And this is critical, especially in agriculture, and we'll talk about that more in a minute. But this is where you have that open line of communication, and the business or organization and the audience both have a say, and they have an open dialogue. So one of the controversies or things that came up with this study is, will it be able to be replicated in another country with the same or similar results? And someone, Ree, has done that. He took this exact study, the same questionnaire, and applied it to South Korean businesses and organizations. They used the excellence questionnaire, and then he also paired it with a cultural values questionnaire to see, does the cultural values have an impact on the excellence of the business, and could those two have a play in the responses that he found with his results. He did find that their societal culture and values reflected their public relations in South Korea, and that some of it was enhanced by the collectivism and Confucianism and ideals and principles that are present in South Korea. And so, although things were very similar, there were some differences, and those were attributed to the fact that collectivism and Confucianism are present in. Applying this to agricultural communications, this theory was not directly been applied to agriculture communications or agriculture in general. However, it is very relevant and very important that we do bring this into agriculture, because we need to have a public relations for any agricultural organization that definitely has an open lines of communication. And so we want to look at that symmetrical model where the producers and the consumers and everyone in between has a say and has a communication line to discuss what is going on. We are advocates for our industry, and we want everyone to be able to see what we do. But the reality is that a lot of people don't really know what goes on in the agricultural industry. And because of that, they're becoming more involved in where their food is produced and how the livestock for their meat is raised, and the origin of all of these things. And so companies and organizations within the agriculture industry need to have a strong public relations department that understands that the consumers want to know and understand and be a part of this. And so I think that the symmetrical model, part of this theory, would be very applicable to agricultural communications. And we want to have that open line of communications so that we can share and have that reciprocity amongst the producers and consumers, and a basic understanding of knowledge that this is what's going on and this is what we want to say, versus people who are just putting out information that may not necessarily be true. These are the resources that I used. I did find some resources within our book in chapter 20, and that was very beneficial. I also looked at several of Grunig's pieces that he has published, as well as the research that they have done in South Korea to talk about the changes in how it would be studied again, or how the results could be replicated in another country. And so all of these pieces and articles that I've used talk specifically about these theories and the models within those theories and how they were used and what the research behind them states.